Hello YouTube, and welcome to an all-new Elder Scrolls lore video. Today we're talking about High King Emeric of Cumberland, the leader of the Daggerfall Covenant, one of the three powers vying for control over Cyrodiil and Tamriel in the Elder Scrolls Online. It's been some time since the last video, but we're back on track, so without any further ado, let's get into it. So as I said in the intro, Emeric of Cumberland is the High King of the Bretons, and the leader of the Daggerfall Covenant in the Elder Scrolls Online. Of the three faction leaders in the Elder Scrolls Online, he's often considered the most boring one, but in my opinion that isn't really the case, as Emeric has quite the interesting backstory that I want to delve into today. His story begins in the Kingdom of Wayrest in the year 522 of the Second Era, a little more than 50 years before the events of the Elder Scrolls Online. He was born as the son to Emeric of Cumberland, who was a minor noble in Wayrest, mostly focusing on commerce and trade. His son Emeric was to learn the same trade and was to be schooled in commerce, but his father saw that having only skills suited for times of peace was not enough and made sure that Emeric also had trained in combat and often sent him with the guards of caravans to get some real combat experience. When Emeric was in his 20s, he developed a well-rounded character with not only skills in combat and strategy, but also in commerce and politics, skills that would be of great benefit in the years following. As it was not much later that High Rock was invaded by the usurper Durkarek the Black Drake, the Reachman Emperor who had usurped Cyrodiil. If you want to know more about his character, please watch my video on the Riemann dynasty. During the invasion of High Rock, Emeric took part in the siege of Wayrest, bolstering the defenses. Due to Wayrest's strong walls and the forces of the Black Drake not having any siege engines, they weren't able to take the city, and rather surrounded it indefinitely. And when the forces of the Black Drake went south towards Daggerfall, Emeric asked the king for permission to sail out to Daggerfall to help its defense, and Emeric then took several units of Wayrest's elite warriors, called the Heavy Dragoons, on board of merchant ships and then sailed to Daggerfall to help with their defense. There he participated in the bitter siege, and the reinforcement troops led by Emeric surprised the Reachman invaders, and together with the Daggerfall army, they managed to defeat the army, and Emeric even managed to kill the pretender Emperor Durkarek the Black Drake with its own hand, as Emeric participated in the siege on the Black Drake's banner. After this siege, the non-occupied kingdoms of High Rock banded together in the first Daggerfall Covenant to help repel outside invaders, and High Rock returned to relative peace as Emeric turned back home in Wayrest. Here, his fame, being the killer of the invader, had significantly increased, and he managed to get well respected and rise in the hierarchy of the city around this time. It was in these same years that Emeric's father got a hold of the rich Orichalcium mines, which ended up strengthening Wayrest's trade and military prowess, giving even more fame to the Cumberland name. This all came at an opportune time for Emeric, as several years later the Canathan flu ravaged through Tamriel, killing large segments of the population slowly but steadily. If you wish to know more about that disease, I recommend watching my video on it, as I don't have time to get into it here. This disease did not only ravage among the poor and middle class, but in High Rock also ended up killing a lot of nobles as well, including the entire royal family of Wayrest and Emeric's father. The king's dynasty had ended, and the search for a new successor began. After some time, the nobles of the city selected Emeric as their new king, as he held both prestige among the merchant lords for owning the Orichalcium mines and held fame among the population for killing the invading Black Drake. He was reluctant at first, unsure, but was eventually persuaded to take the throne. He then became King of Wayrest, and as King of Wayrest, began to head the loose pact between the kingdoms that was known as the First Daggerfall Covenant. As king, his position was still relatively weak. While he was more than qualified for the job, being both a skilled politician, warrior and merchant, he didn't really have many allies, so the search for a wife began, preferably one that would bring a strong alliance with another major kingdom in the Covenant to strengthen his position. His advisors presented him Princess Rael, daughter of King Rancer of Shornhelm, a valuable ally and one that was quick to offer the hand of his daughter to him. The offer got accepted by Emeric and all seemed well. That was until he was on a foreign visit to Sentinel, where he met Princess Maraja, the daughter of King Faharajad of Sentinel. Emeric himself states that it was love at first sight, and he swore that he would have no other queen by his side than Maraja. This was a good choice, as the marriage brought good foreign relations and profitable trade between Wayrest and Hammerfell. But King Rancer of Shornhelm was not particularly pleased in the slightest after his daughter was just shoved aside. He then withdrew his ambassador from Wayrest and did not show up at the wedding despite being invited like all the other kings of the Covenant. A year later, however, he did show up, but not to the wedding, rather with an army at the gates of Wayrest in a surprise attack. Wayrest was in a poor state to defend itself, as it had not expected an attack, and it was trained soldiers of Shornhelm against the summoned militias of Wayrest. This was a pretty, bad situation for Emeric, and Emeric eventually decided to join the fight himself at the gates, only lightly armored and together with his personal guard. He and his men charged into battle at the gates and broke their defenses and managed to get the gates of the city to close up before Rancer's main force was able to show up at the gates. The siege was long and bitter, but Emeric managed to summon reinforcements to relieve the city. Troops from Hammerfell crossed the Iliac Bay to help, and Orcish troops, under the lead of one of Emeric's best friends, clan leader Kurok, came over the land of the east to help. With the help of the Orcs and the Red Guards, Emeric managed to defeat Rancer's forces and drive them back, eventually defeating his forces decisively. Emeric then rewarded his allies who had come to him in his time of need and gave the Orcs of Kurok's clan the land now known as Hrothgar, where they would found a new Orsinium that we can see in the Elder Scrolls Online. At the same time, he also formed a new alliance, the Greater Daggerfall Covenant. The original Covenant of Kingdoms now banded together with the Orcs of Hrothgar and the Red Guards of Hammerfell's northern kingdoms. This new alliance, loosely led by Emeric, then made a treaty between the Empire of Cyrodiil under Emperor Varen Aquilarius and the Daggerfall Covenant under Emeric, speaking out friendly relations between the two powers. But when Emperor Varen Aquilarius of Cyrodiil fell during the Soul Burst and Clivia Tarn, his wife, took the throne, Emeric turned on his stance on the Empire, as Clivia allowed Daedric worship, and thus the newly formed alliance rallied under Emeric to conquer Cyrodiil, as he pledged to conquer Cyrodiil and bring back order to it. Emeric's new goal was to use the Daggerfall Covenant to overthrow Clivia Tarn and then take the Ruby Throne for himself, bringing order and justice back to Tamriel. This is where the events of Elder Scrolls Online begin, and this is how we meet him in the game, sworn to take the Ruby Throne and restore the Empire to its former glory. And that was basically the backstory of High King Emeric. I hope you enjoyed it. I definitely enjoyed coming back to the Elder Scrolls lore videos after my short break. Yeah, will take some getting used to, because my break was actually a lot longer than you'd think, as during my holiday you've basically been watching pre-recorded videos. Just know that from now on my videos will be published on Saturdays, as I now have very busy weeks, and on Fridays my Friday will sometimes have lectures until 6 PM, so that means I can't really do any last minute adjustments on Friday anymore like I used to. So I'm pushing the video publishing date to Saturday, because on Saturday I am off. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you next Saturday in the next Elder Scrolls lore video. Feels good to be back.